It's Spiritual Psychic Cynthia Killian again, Psychic Cynthia, and welcome back to your Awakening Your Inner Psychic Level 1 video series. I want to talk with you today about meditation and visualization and the role that these play in awakening your inner psychic. Visualization in particular, but also, yes, meditation. Now, the kind of meditation that we psychics do, it might be a little bit different than, say, the kind of meditation that you'll just do only to relax. Now, of course, relaxing meditation is helpful. And as I've talked about before on this series, you do need to relax and loosen up if you're ever going to awaken your inner psychic, if you're really going to learn to go to the next level with your psychic abilities. I mean, you can't be wound too tight. That's just not very helpful. So if you're doing meditations already that help you relax and they kind of help you zone out, that's great. But here's the thing, dear one. The purpose of being psychic is not at all to zone out. That's not what we're going here for. It's actually quite the opposite. As psychics, we're learning to tune in, to pay attention, to notice. We want to get wisdom, to get insight, to get knowledge. We want to have that upper edge, right? We're not trying to be asleep. We're trying to be awake. Hello. Okay. So, yes, I do encourage everyone to practice meditation for the purposes of relaxing, because as your body relaxes, that will make it easier for you to open up. But a lot of people just kind of can get into the relaxation part. I mean, I see this people who maybe they're not on the spiritual psychic path, they're just on the spiritual path, okay? And so they get into the seeking the bliss, right, in the meditation. But they don't take the next step, which is to awaken the inner psychic. That's what we're doing here. And by the way, if you're really deep on a spiritual path, that is wonderful. I am too, you know. The cool thing about being spiritual and psychic is that as you develop your psychic abilities, you're developing this non-physical sense. And guess what? That helps you to perceive spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, source. Because source obviously is beyond the physical, right? So that means if we're ever going to have a direct experience with the divine, we're going to need to have the ability to experience not only here in the physical, but beyond the physical. So yes, your psychic awakening and development can serve you well on your spiritual path, but let's not forget that we're not here just to zone out, okay? We're here to awaken, to connect, to stimulate and get to know and use. Actually, not just use, be one with that inner psychic again. So there's certain types of meditations that work better for that. And generally, this is just simply guided visualization. Well, I say guided. You can guide it from within. So any kind of meditation that is more active, that uses your imagination. Because when you go within to imagine actively and consciously, you are developing the interior muscles that will allow you to receive psychically in greater depth and with greater clarity and definition. It's kind of like, okay, before you practice a lot of visualization, you might be naturally psychic, and you are probably if you find your way to these videos. But if you get psychic guidance, it's like looking at it through a grainy, old-fashioned TV screen with not very good quality of picture, right? And it's a little staticky. But then as you meditate, and specifically meditate with visualization, you start to hone in on it, and the picture becomes sharper and sharper and clearer. until you can see every little detail. Okay, maybe not every detail, because I don't think we ever see it all here in this realm, in the physical realm, but you'll see much more. So visualization is it is the training that we must undertake as psychics to really awaken that capacity to see and perceive clearly. And by the way, I know not all of us experience our psychic sensing through seeing. So visualization is not only about seeing, it is about experiencing in the interior realities, inside in your mind. Now, one of the ways that I was taught many years ago when I was training with the White Witch to develop my healing abilities was to imagine that I was eating an apple. It could be some other fruit, okay, if you don't like apple. But I think something like an apple or a pear, because these things have crunch, okay? And if you'll work with that and you'll begin to imagine yourself eating that apple, first you hold it in your hand, and you're doing this with your eyes closed, of course, when you do it. And you can smell it, feel it in your hand. And then you bite in and you experience that sound, you hear that, and you feel it, the taste and everything. If you'll meditate upon that and practice visualizing that, I mean, understand I'm talking about you're doing this in your mind. And you do that for a few minutes every day or so many times a week. For example, this will help you develop these inner psychic muscles. What you're doing with visualization is you're developing what I call the inner senses. Perhaps you've heard of some of these inner senses. Clairaudience, right? Psychic hearing. Clairvoyance. Psychic seeing. Clairsentience. That's the psychic feeling. You have your emotional clairsentience, which we often refer to as empath or empathy. Your physical clairsentience, which is another form of empathy, or really we should say empathy is a form of clairsentience. How about clairaugustus? You ever heard of that? Psychic smelling. And there's many other senses we don't have words for. Inner senses, I should say. So visualization helps to develop these muscles. Now, we're lucky because we live in a time in the age where there are many guided meditations available that will take you on visualization journeys. It's kind of like going to a workout class is how I think of it. Like I can work out at home and I'm pretty good at it. But, every so often I get lazy. So I've got to go to a Zumba class or a pound class or whatever, and I need to get, I need somebody to guide me, right? To make sure I'm, doing it, because I get a little, lazy about it, right? I mean, if you see my workouts in the morning, you hardly call me lazy, but still, I do get not as sharp as I normally would be. So we're so lucky. We live in a day and age when there are many guided visualizations available. And any guided visualization, even if you're just using your imagination in meditation to go to a happy place, that will help develop your inner senses, your psychic muscles. So if you have a favorite guided visualization, then use it. And just so we're clear here, I mean, this is different than, like, say, listening to chant music so you can trance out, which that's good too in a way, because that helps you to relax. And it might put you in a deep state of consciousness where you can maybe receive some messages you wouldn't normally. But it doesn't really develop these inner senses the same way as what I'm talking about here. You have to use your imagination in your meditation to develop these inner senses. And some other things that you can do without guided visualizations. Well, first of all, let me say I'll be providing you with some audios as part of this program. I mean, that's just something that I do. So you'll have some meditations made by me. So even if you don't have any other ones, you'll have some made by me. But if you have some favorites, and I'm sure there's some on YouTube, but listen, you got to close your eyes. You can't visualize in the interior world and watch a video at the same time, or most people can't, I should say. So if you are listening to something on YouTube or whatever, you've got to put that picture away and just listen with your physical ears, and then lay down or sit down and relax and close your eyes and go on the journey. And the trick is to stay awake, by the way. So you might start with some shorter ones, of, 15 minutes or less, 10 minutes or less, and then work your way up. A lot of the meditations I do are around 20 minutes. The ones that I make is what I'm saying. But then I have some that are longer, that are 45 minutes. I mean, generally, if it's longer than 45 minutes, I try to cut it up into separate. So really just doing some guided visualization for 5 or 10 minutes a day would be wonderful to help you develop your psychic ability. Actually, if you will meditate for 15 minutes a day in any way, will accelerate your psychic ability very quickly. So write that down if you're taking notes. What I'd like you to see is meditate 15 minutes a day, and we'll talk more about meditation as we go through this, don't worry, and I'll provide you with some materials. 15 minutes a day. Did I say a day? Yes, I said every day, okay? And just 15 minutes, maybe even 10 to 15 minutes is good. When I first started out, I might have started with 15 minutes, but I quickly was doing 30 minutes to an hour a day, every day. And I did that for years, actually, in the morning. So afternoon, I would do it even more. I probably did it too much, actually. Just do 15 minutes a day. That's plenty. If you miss a day, that's okay. Just start again tomorrow. Get back on the bandwagon the next day, but do it. And if you can't do 15 minutes, do 5. Actually, just 5 minutes a day of quiet meditation would help. I mean, if you only have 5 minutes a day, you might want to just start with sitting in the silence. I think what would be ideal is 5 minutes of quiet breathing meditation, maybe with 5 to 10 minutes of guided visualization, whether you're listening to a CD or recorded meditation, or just going on a journey in your mind. And by the way, when I was starting out meditating, we didn't have all these wonderful recordings, and we hardly had meditation music available. So I would just climb a little tree, literally, and sit on top of my roof and listen to my breathing. I would do that for an hour, okay? I can still remember the first meditation music CD I had, Kitaro, if any of you all know that. So it was a long time ago. So it is a good practice to also just meditate with your breathing and see what comes up in your mind. But by listening to guided visualizations or going on a journey, doing some exercise, imagining the apple, if you have oracle cards that you like to work with, the other thing that you can do is take an oracle card, just one that you really like the image of, and look at that image and sort of memorize it a little bit, and then close your eyes and then go into that card and let yourself have an experience. So those are some tips for building your inner senses. And your assignment is to work with the visualization, whether it's by working with a guided visualization audio that you're listening to, or some of these other tips that I've shared. So let's get started building those psychic muscles. And as always, feel free to post any questions or share any thoughts or anything you liked about this video below in the comments. Bright blessings.